The rain came down in sheets, turning the Chicago streets into rivers of gray. Chen counted her tips for the third time, her fingers numb from the cold. $43. She'd worked a double shift at Rosie's diner, 16 hours on her feet, and $43 was all she had to show for it. Her sneakers squelched against the wet pavement as she walked toward the bus stop. The hole in her left sole had finally broken through completely, and now her sock was soaked. She'd need to glue it again tonight, maybe reinforce it with duct tape. New shoes weren't in the budget. Nothing was in the budget. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The diner's kitchen grease clung to her hair and clothes. She could smell it on herself, that permanent scent of fryer oil and desperation that no amount of soap seemed to wash away. Her reflection in a shop window showed a 26-year-old woman who looked 35, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing a jacket that had seen better years. Should have stayed in school, she muttered, her mother's voice echoing in her head. But scholarships didn't cover living expenses, and someone had to pay for Mom's medical bills. Cancer didn't care about college degrees. The bus stop shelter offered little protection from the wind. Mara huddled in the corner, pulling her thin jacket tighter. October in Chicago was brutal, and winter was coming. She'd need to pick up more shifts, maybe see if the convenience store on 5th was still hiring for overnight stocking. That's when she saw him. A little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sat on the curb about 20 feet away. He wasn't in the shelter, wasn't even trying to get out of the rain. He just sat there, shoulders hunched, getting absolutely soaked. Mara's first instinct was to look away. Chicago was full of sad stories, and she had enough of her own. But something about the kid made her pause. He was too clean to be homeless, wearing clothes that looked expensive, dark jeans and a navy jacket with some designer label she didn't recognize. His sneakers were pristine, probably cost more than her monthly rent. So why was he sitting in the rain, alone, at 9 o'clock at night? People walked past him. A businessman in a suit, briefcase held over his head. A woman with grocery bags, hurrying toward a parking garage. A group of teenagers, laughing and shoving each other. Everyone saw him. Nobody stopped. Mara knew that feeling, being invisible when you needed someone most. She walked over slowly, not wanting to startle him. "Hey," she said softly, crouching beside him despite the puddle soaking into her already wet jeans. "You okay?" The boy looked up, and Mara's heart cracked. His face was streaked with tears and rain, his dark eyes enormous and terrified. He was shaking violently, his lips tinged blue from the cold. "Where are your parents?" Mara asked gently. The boy's face crumpled. He opened his mouth, but only a sob came out. Okay, it's all right." Mara peeled off her jacket, her only jacket, the one with the broken zipper she'd been meaning to replace for 2 years, and wrapped it around his shoulders. It swallowed him, but at least it was relatively dry inside. The boy buried his face in the fabric, his small body shaking with cold and fear. Mara's stomach chose that moment to growl, reminding her she'd skipped lunch to cover Maria's tables when she'd called in sick. She'd saved a bread roll from the diner, wrapped in a napkin in her bag. It was supposed to be her dinner. She pulled it out and tore it in half. "You hungry?" The boy peeked out from the jacket. His lower lip trembled. Mara held out the bigger piece. "Here, I know it's not fancy, but it's warm." Well, it was warm about 3 hours ago. Tiny cold fingers reached out and took the bread. He nibbled at it cautiously, watching her like he expected her to disappear. "I'm Mara," she said, sitting beside him on the wet curb and biting into her half. "What's your name?" "Danny," he whispered. His voice was so quiet she almost missed it over the sound of the rain. "That's a good name. Strong name." Mara tried to smile, even though her teeth were chattering. "You know what, Danny? You remind me of someone. My little brother, actually. He used to get lost all the time when we'd go to the mall. Drove our mom crazy." Danny's eyes fixed on her face, desperate for the distraction. "One time," Mara continued, "he hid inside a clothing rack for 2 hours because he thought it was funny. The whole security team was looking for him. When they finally found him, he was eating a candy bar he'd swiped from someone's shopping bag." The corner of Danny's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. "So, Danny, can you tell me your address? Or your phone number? We need to get you home." He shook his head violently, fresh tears spilling over. "I don't know. I don't remember." "That's okay. That's totally okay." Mara pulled him closer, letting him lean against her side. She was freezing without her jacket, but the kid needed it more. "How about this? I'll tell you about the weirdest customers I had today." This one guy ordered coffee with 7 sugars. 7, I counted. His spoon was literally standing up in the cup. Danny's eyes widened. Right? And then this lady asked me to microwave her ice cream because she likes it melted. Who does that? Ice cream is supposed to be cold. That's the whole point. For the next 20 minutes, Mara kept up a steady stream of stories, making up ridiculous scenarios, exaggerating the strange moments from her shift. Anything to keep Danny from panicking, to keep him warm with the sound of her voice if nothing else. The rain didn't let up. Mara's tips sat heavy in her pocket, $43 that was supposed to go toward her electric bill. But she was thinking about calling a cab, spending money she didn't have, because this kid needed to get home and she had no idea how else to help him. Then she heard it. The screech of tires. 2 black SUVs with tinted windows slammed to a stop at the curb, so close that Mara instinctively pulled Danny back. Her heart hammered against her ribs. These weren't regular cars. These were the kind of vehicles that appeared in news reports about organized crime. 4 men in dark suits jumped out. They moved with military precision, their eyes scanning the street like hawks hunting prey. "Danny!" the first man shouted, relief flooding his face. He was built like a linebacker, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. "Jesus Christ, we found him." Danny's head whipped around. "Marcus!" The men rushed forward. Mara instinctively pulled Danny closer, her body between him and these strangers. Every instinct screamed danger. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. "Security," Marcus said, his tone clipped and professional. He knelt in front of Danny, checking him over with shaking hands. "Are you hurt? Did anyone touch you?" "I got lost," Danny said quietly. "At the park. I couldn't find you. We've been looking for over an hour." A second man was already on his phone. "Yes, sir. We found him. Southwest corner of State and Monroe." "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." Marcus looked at Mara properly for the first time. His expression shifted from relief to something else. Assessment. Calculation. "You were with him?" He was alone. Cold. Scared. Mara stood slowly, her legs protesting. "I just sat with him until someone came." "She gave me her coat," Danny said, pointing at the jacket still wrapped around his shoulders. "And her dinner." Marcus's eyes dropped to the soggy bread wrapper on the ground, then to Mara's soaked clothes, the way she was shivering uncontrollably. Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe respect. "Thank you," he said, and it sounded genuine. "We've been going out of our minds." "You should get him home," Mara said. "He's freezing. And maybe—" She bit her tongue before saying what she was thinking. "Maybe watch him better next time." "We will." Marcus gently lifted Danny into his arms. "Come on, buddy. Your dad's losing it." "Wait." Danny reached for Mara. "Your jacket." "Keep it," Mara said, forcing a smile even though she'd need every layer she owned for the walk home. "Looks better on you anyway, champ." The second man pressed something into Mara's hand before she could protest. She looked down at a crisp $100 bill. "I can't." "You can," he said firmly. "For your kindness. For keeping him safe." Before Mara could argue, they were moving. Marcus carried Danny toward the SUV, while 2 other men formed a protective circle around them. The precision, the coordination, this wasn't normal security. This was something else entirely. Danny looked back at her from Marcus's arms, his small hand waving. Mara waved back, her throat tight. The SUVs pulled away, disappearing into the rain-slicked streets as quickly as they'd appeared. Mara stood alone at the bus stop, soaked to the bone, holding a $100 bill and wondering what the hell just happened. Her fingers were numb, her whole body shaking from cold and adrenaline. She looked at the money. This could cover her electric bill and buy groceries for 2 weeks, maybe even get those shoes fixed properly. But something about it felt heavy. Wrong. Almost. She shook her head. She was overthinking. A kid had been in trouble. She'd helped. Someone had paid her. Simple. Normal. Nothing weird about military-grade security details and 7-year-olds in designer clothes. The bus finally arrived, 40 minutes late. Mara climbed aboard, collapsed into a seat, and closed her eyes. She just wanted to get home, change into dry clothes, and forget this strange night ever happened. She didn't see the black sedan that had been parked across the street, its occupants watching the entire exchange. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. didn't notice the camera lens that had captured every moment, and she definitely didn't know that the little boy she'd helped wasn't just any child. Danny belonged to Dominic Castellano, the man who controlled half of Chicago's underworld, a man whose name was whispered in fear, whose business empire stretched from legitimate real estate to decidedly less legitimate operations. A man who'd lost his wife 3 years ago and had become obsessed with protecting the one person he had left, his son. In a penthouse office overlooking Lake Michigan, Dominic stood at floor-to-ceiling windows, phone pressed to his ear. His reflection showed a man in his early 40s, dark hair touched with silver, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. But his face was twisted with the kind of fear only a parent could understand. "We found him," Marcus's voice came through. "He's safe, not hurt." Dominic's knees nearly buckled. He braced himself against the window. Where was he? State and Monroe. He'd been sitting in the rain for almost 2 hours. 2 hours? Dominic's voice dropped to something dangerous. "How the fuck did this happen, Marcus?" "Sir," he slipped away at the playground. 1 second he was on the swings, the next we had 6 men watching. "He's fast, and he's small, and he wanted to follow a dog. I don't want excuses. I want to know he's coming home. He's in the car now. ETA 15 minutes. Marcus paused. "Sir, there's something else. Someone helped him. A woman." Dominic's entire body went rigid. "What woman?" "Young, maybe mid-20s, waitress, based on her uniform. She gave Danny her jacket and her food. Stayed with him in the rain until we arrived. Name? We're working on it. Tommy's pulling street camera footage now." "I want everything," Dominic said quietly. "Name, address, employment history, criminal record, known associates. Everything." "Sir, I don't care how she seemed. Someone got close to my son for 2 hours. I need to know why." He hung up and stared at the city lights below. Chicago sprawled in all directions. Millions of people, any one of them a potential threat. He'd built his empire on paranoia and preparation. Trust got people killed. But even as he thought it, doubt crept in. Marcus had sounded surprised, almost impressed. That wasn't usual. Marcus had worked for the Castellano family for 15 years. He didn't impress easily. Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Sending you video now." The file loaded slowly. Security footage from a traffic camera. Grainy, but clear enough. Dominic watched a small figure approach his son. Watched her crouch beside him, wrap him in her jacket. Watched her tear bread in half and give Danny the bigger piece. She looked cold, soaked, exhausted. Her clothes were worn, her movements speaking of someone who'd worked a long, brutal shift. She had nothing, and she'd given Danny everything she had. Dominic rewound the footage, watching again. The way she made Danny smile. The way she positioned her body between his son and the street, protecting him without thinking about it. The way she'd barely hesitated before giving away her only jacket. His phone rang again. "Yeah. Got her," Tommy said. "Chen, 26. Works at Rosie's diner on South Clark. Lives in a studio apartment in Bridgeport. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Family? Mother deceased, cancer, 2 years ago. Father remarried and moved to Oregon. 1 brother, military, currently deployed overseas. No known associates in any criminal organizations. Boss, she's clean. Like, unusually clean." Dominic frowned. "Financial? 1 checking account with about $200. Student loan debt from a year of community college before she dropped out. Works doubles most days. Pays her rent late but pays it. No credit cards, no assets. She's broke, but she's honest broke. Keep digging. There's nothing to dig, boss. She's exactly what she looks like, a waitress trying to survive." Dominic hung up and watched the video again. Chen had been given $100, probably more money than she'd made all day, and she'd looked at it like it was a curse instead of a blessing. Who did that? Who helped a stranger's child with no expectation of reward? The penthouse door opened. Marcus entered with Danny wrapped in a towel, his hair still damp, but his color better. A doctor followed, carrying a medical bag. "Daddy!" Danny ran to him, and Dominic caught him. Holding his son so tightly the boy squeaked. "You scared me," Dominic whispered into Danny's hair. "Don't ever do that again." "I'm sorry. I just wanted to pet the dog, and then I couldn't find Marcus, and everyone was gone. I know. Dominic pulled back, checking his son's face, his arms, making sure he was really okay. "But you're safe now. The nice lady helped me." Danny's eyes lit up. "Mara. She gave me her coat even though she was cold too, and her dinner, even though she was hungry, and she told me funny stories so I wouldn't be scared. The doctor examined Danny while Dominic watched, his mind racing. His son was safe. That was all that mattered. But Mara Chen had done something Dominic's own highly paid security team hadn't managed. She'd kept Danny calm, kept him safe, with nothing but kindness and a half-eaten bread roll. After the doctor confirmed Danny was fine, just cold and scared but unharmed, Dominic carried his son upstairs to bed. He stayed until Danny fell asleep, holding his small hand, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Back in his office, Dominic pulled up the file Tommy had compiled, Mara Chen's entire life, laid out in documents and photographs. Employee records from 5 different low-wage jobs, bank statements showing a woman barely making ends meet, social media photos of her with her mother in a hospital bed, both of them smiling despite everything. She was nobody, no connections, no angle, no agenda. She'd just been a kind person who'd seen a scared child and helped. Dominic leaned back in his leather chair, staring at her photograph, her employee ID from Rosie's diner, where she looked tired and sad, but her eyes were kind. In his world, kindness was a weakness. Compassion got you killed. He'd built his empire on ruthlessness, on never trusting anyone outside the family. But his son had been lost and terrified, and Mara Chen had given him comfort when everyone else had walked past. That meant something. That meant everything. Dominic picked up his phone and dialed Marcus. "I want an address. I'm going to see her." "Tonight, sir? It's almost midnight." "It's almost midnight. Tonight. And Marcus send flowers, expensive ones, to Rosie's diner. Attention, Mara Chen." What should the card say? Dominic thought about his son's smile, about the way Mara had wrapped him in her only jacket, about genuine goodness in a world full of darkness. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Just, thank you. Should I continue with part 2? Retry JC, yes, part 2. The protection. Mara's alarm screamed at 6:30 a.m., dragging her from dreams of warm beds and full bank accounts. She slapped it silent and lay there for a moment, staring at the water-stained ceiling of her studio apartment. Every muscle in her body ached. The walk home last night without her jacket had left her chilled to the bone, and now her throat felt raw, her head foggy. She couldn't afford to be sick, couldn't afford to miss a shift. She dragged herself out of bed and into the shower, which sputtered lukewarm water for exactly 4 minutes before turning ice cold. The landlord kept promising to fix the water heater. That was 3 months ago. Her phone buzzed as she was pulling on her uniform, the same blue dress she wore every day, faded from too many washes. A text from her brother Jake, sent from whatever godforsaken military base he was stationed at. "Hey sis, wired you $200. Don't argue. Buy yourself something nice for once." Mara's eyes burned. Jake barely made anything himself, and he was sending her money. She typed back, "You don't have to do this." His response came immediately. "Family takes care of family. Love you." She pressed the phone to her chest, blinking back tears she couldn't afford to shed. If she started crying now, she wouldn't stop. The walk to Rosie's diner took 40 minutes. The bus would have been faster, but that was $2, and 50 she could save. Her wet shoes from yesterday had dried stiff and uncomfortable, the duct tape she'd added holding for now. Chicago was waking up around her. Business people in expensive coats rushed toward the L train, delivery trucks double-parked, their drivers shouting to each other in a dozen different languages. A homeless man she recognized, Carl, sat in his usual spot with his dog, an ancient pit bull named Princess. "Morning, Carl," Mara said, dropping $2 into his cup. "You're an angel, Mara," Carl called after her. "A goddamn angel. If only he knew how far from true that was." Angels didn't lie awake at night doing mental math, trying to figure out which bill could go unpaid longest. Angels didn't water down their shampoo to make it last another week. Rosie's diner sat on a corner that had seen better decades. The neon sign flickered, the R permanently dark. Inside, the black and white checkered floor was cracked, the red vinyl booths patched with duct tape that matched Mara's shoes. But it was warm, and the coffee was decent, and the regulars tipped okay. "You look like hell," Rita said by way of greeting. The older waitress had worked at Rosie's for 20 years and had seen everything. "You getting sick?" "I'm fine," Mara lied, tying her apron. "Uh-huh. Well, you got a delivery about 20 minutes ago." Rita jerked her thumb toward the counter. Mara turned and froze. A massive flower arrangement sat on the counter, easily 3 feet tall. Roses, lilies, orchids, flowers she didn't even know the names of in shades of white and cream and pale pink. It looked like something from a wedding or a funeral, far too elaborate for a rundown diner. "Those are for you," Rita said, watching Mara's reaction with undisguised curiosity. "Card's got your name on it." Mara approached slowly, like the flowers might bite. The arrangement probably cost more than her monthly rent. The card was cream-colored, heavy stock, with just 2 words in elegant script. "Thank you." No signature. No explanation. "Who's it from?" Rita pressed. "You got a secret admirer? A sugar daddy you've been hiding?" "I don't know," Mara said honestly, but her mind flashed to last night, to Danny and the men in suits, to the $100 bill that now sat in her wallet like it was burning a hole through the leather. "Well, somebody's got good taste and deep pockets," Rita said. "Those are expensive flowers, honey. Like, I'm sorry I crashed your car expensive." The morning shift started, and Mara tried to focus on work. Coffee for table 3, pancakes for the construction workers at the counter, eggs over easy, bacon crispy, wheat toast, no butter. The familiar rhythm usually soothed her, but today she couldn't stop glancing at the flowers. At 9:15, a man in a suit walked in. Not unusual, they got plenty of downtown professionals stopping by for coffee. But this man was different. He moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the diner with professional assessment. He walked directly to Mara. "Miss Chen?" Her heart kicked into overdrive. "Yes? I'm Vincent. I work for Mr. Castellano." He handed her a business card, heavy stock, embossed letters, no company name, just a phone number. "Mr. Castellano would like to speak with you. At your convenience, of course." Mara stared at the card. Castellano. The name rang a bell, but she couldn't place it. "About what?" "About last night. About his son." Vincent's expression softened slightly. "About thanking you properly. The flowers were just the beginning. Mr. Castellano is a man who pays his debts. You helped Danny when he was vulnerable. That means something to him." Before Mara could respond, Vincent continued. "Your shift ends at 2, correct? A car will be waiting outside, if you choose to accept the invitation." "And if I don't?" Vincent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then the car will leave, and you'll never hear from us again. Mr. Castellano isn't in the business of forcing people, but I think you'll want to hear what he has to say." He left as quickly as he'd arrived, the door chiming behind him. Rita materialized at Mara's elbow. "Girl, what the hell was that?" "I don't know," Mara whispered, but that was a lie. She was starting to understand, pieces clicking together, the security detail, the expensive clothes, the name Castellano that tugged at her memory. She pulled out her phone during her break and Googled it. Dominic Castellano, real estate developer and businessman, the first result said. But when she scrolled further, she found the other articles, the whispers, the allegations that never quite stuck, the federal investigations that went nowhere. Dominic Castellano wasn't just a businessman. He was connected. Mob, mafia, organized crime, whatever you wanted to call it, he was rumored to be at the center of it, and she'd given his son her jacket and a piece of bread. Oh God. Mara breathed. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She burned herself on the coffee pot, forgot to put in an order for table 6, spilled water on a customer. Rita kept shooting her concerned looks, but Mara couldn't explain, couldn't put into words the fear creeping up her spine. At 2 o'clock, she untied her apron with shaking hands. Through the diner's window, she could see it, a black Mercedes with tinted windows, parked directly out front. "You sure about this?" Rita asked quietly. She'd noticed the car too. "Because you don't have to go anywhere with anyone, honey. I don't care how nice the flowers are. I just helped his kid," Mara said. "I'm sure it's fine." But she wasn't sure. Wasn't sure of anything except that men like Dominic Castellano didn't send flowers and cars for no reason. Vincent stepped out of the Mercedes as she approached. "Miss Chen, thank you for coming." "I haven't decided if I'm getting in that car yet," Mara said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "Fair enough. Would it help if I told you there are 3 other people in the vehicle, including Mr. Castellano's assistant and a female security guard? You won't be alone with any men." That did help, slightly. Mara took a breath and made a decision. If Dominic Castellano wanted to hurt her, he wouldn't need to lure her into a car. Men with his kind of power had other options. She got in. The interior was exactly as luxurious as she'd expected. Leather seats that were heated, perfect climate control, and soft music playing through speakers she couldn't see. A woman in her 30s with kind eyes and professional attire sat in the back seat. "I'm Angela," she said, offering her hand. Mr. Castellano's personal assistant. We're going to his office downtown. It's about 15 minutes from here. The drive took them through neighborhoods that got progressively nicer. The buildings grew taller, shinier. People on the sidewalks wore clothes that cost more than Mara made in a month. The Castellano building was all glass and steel, modern and intimidating. They entered through a private garage, took a private elevator that required a key card, and rose to the top floor without stopping. The penthouse office was something out of a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. Furniture that was probably antique and definitely expensive. Everything was in shades of cream and charcoal, sophisticated and cold. Dominic Castellano stood at the windows, his back to them. He wore a dark suit that fit him perfectly, his hands clasped behind his back. When he turned, Mara's breath caught. He was handsome in a dangerous way. Dark hair with silver at the temples, strong jawline, and eyes that were nearly black. But it was his presence that struck her the way he commanded the space without saying a word. "Miss Chen." His voice was smooth, controlled. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure I had a choice," Mara said before she could stop herself. One corner of his mouth quirked up, almost a smile. "You always have a choice. That's why I sent an invitation rather than a summons." He gestured to a seating area, a cream-colored sofa, and 2 chairs arranged around a coffee table. "Please sit. Can Angela get you anything? Coffee, water, lunch?" Mara's stomach growled traitorously. She'd skipped breakfast to save money. "Water is fine." She sat on the edge of the sofa, her worn uniform and duct-taped shoes completely out of place in this pristine environment. Dominic sat across from her, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. "I wanted to thank you," he said finally, "for what you did last night. For Danny." "Anyone would have helped," Mara said. "No." His voice was firm. "They wouldn't have. I watched the security footage. 47 people walked past my son before you stopped. 47 people saw a child crying in the rain and kept going." Mara didn't know what to say to that. "You gave him your jacket," Dominic continued. "Your dinner. You stayed with him for," he checked his watch, 23 minutes. "In the rain, without protection from the cold. Why?" "Because he was scared," Mara said simply. "Because he was just a little kid who needed someone." Dominic leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Do you know who I am, Miss Chen?" "I Googled you," she admitted. "So, yes, sort of. And you came anyway. You sent flowers. Seemed rude to blow you off." This time he did smile, genuine and brief. "I like you. You're honest. That's rare in my world." "What do you want from me?" Mara asked. "Because I'm guessing this isn't just about saying thank you." Dominic stood and walked to his desk. He picked up a folder and returned, setting it on the coffee table between them. "That's everything about you," he said. "Your employment history, your financials, your family situation. I had you investigated." Ice flooded Mara's veins. "You what?" "It's what I do. Someone gets close to my son. I need to know who they are." He opened the folder, showing her pages of documents her life laid bare. "You work 60-hour weeks and barely make rent. You dropped out of college to care for your dying mother. You send money to a homeless veteran even though you can barely feed yourself. You're 2 months behind on your electric bill." Shame burned in Mara's cheeks. "Okay, so you know I'm broke. Congratulations. Was this really necessary?" "Yes." Dominic closed the folder. "Because I needed to know if you were genuine or if last night was an elaborate setup." "A setup?" Mara's voice rose. "You think I arranged for your kid to get lost so I could?" "What? Help him and get close to you? That's insane. In my world, stranger things have happened. Well, in my world, sometimes people just help each other because it's the right thing to do." Silence fell. They stared at each other, tension crackling between them. "I believe you," Dominic said quietly. "My entire security team couldn't find a single thing wrong with you. You're exactly what you appear to be, a good person struggling to survive in a city that doesn't care." "Great. So can I go now?" "I have a proposition for you." Mara stood abruptly. "I'm not interested in whatever you're offering. I don't want your money, and I don't want to be involved in your world. I helped a kid. That's it. We're done here." "Sit down," Dominic said, not threatening but not asking either. Something in his tone made Mara sink back onto the sofa despite herself. "You're in danger," Dominic said bluntly. "Last night, you were photographed helping my son. That photograph is now in the hands of at least 3 rival organizations. They know your name, your address, where you work. They know you mean something to me because I sent you flowers that cost more than most people's cars. Mara's mouth went dry. I don't mean anything to you. I'm nobody. You saved my son. That makes you somebody. And in my world, that makes you a target. So what are you saying? Dominic leaned back, his expression unreadable. I'm saying I'm going to protect you whether you like it or not. Starting tonight, you'll have security watching your apartment. You'll have escorts to and from work. Anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me. I don't want your protection. Too bad. His voice went cold. Because you're getting it. You involved yourself in my life the moment you helped Danny. Now I'm involved in yours. That's not fair. No, Dominic agreed. It's not. But it's reality. You can fight it, or you can accept it, and let me help you beyond just security. Mara's head spun. This couldn't be happening. 24 hours ago, her biggest problem was a leaky shoe. Now she was sitting in a Mafia boss's office being told her life was in danger. What kind of help? She asked warily. I'll pay off your debts. All of them. Student loans, back rent, medical bills from your mother's treatment. I'll set you up in a secure apartment, somewhere safe with actual heat and hot water. I'll give you a salary for, let's call it consulting work. Nothing illegal, just helping me understand how normal people think. Why would you do all that? Because Danny asked about you this morning, Dominic said. And for the first time, his expression softened. He wanted to know if the nice lady was okay, if she'd gotten her jacket back, if she had enough food to eat. My son hasn't cared about anyone outside our family since his mother died. You made him feel safe when he was terrified. That's worth everything to me. Mara's resolve crumbled slightly. She thought about Danny's small hand holding hers, his tears, his trust. I need to think about this, she said. You have until tonight. After that, the security goes into effect with or without your cooperation. I'd prefer with, but I'll settle for without if I have to. Vincent appeared at the office door as if summoned. Miss Chen, I'll drive you wherever you'd like to go. Mara stood on shaky legs. At the door, she turned back. Dominic was watching her with an intensity that made her skin feel too tight. Your son, she said quietly. Danny, is he okay? After last night? Something flickered across Dominic's face. Surprise, maybe. He's fine. Told me all about the funny stories you told him. He laughed for the first time in weeks. Mara nodded and left, Angela guiding her back to the elevator. The ride down felt like descending from another planet. When the Mercedes dropped her off at her apartment building, Mara sat in her studio for a long time, staring at nothing. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Miss Chen, this is Tommy from Mr. Castellano's security team. Just wanted to let you know we have eyes on your building. You won't see us, but we're there. If you need anything, dial *67 on your phone. It'll connect you directly to me. He hung up before she could respond. Mara walked to her window and looked out at the street. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then she started noticing them. The man reading a newspaper on the bench who never turned the page. The woman in a parked car who'd been sitting there for 20 minutes. The utility worker on a ladder who wasn't actually fixing anything. They were watching her, protecting her. She was surrounded by invisible guards. Her life had become a cage lined with velvet. That night, Mara lay in bed, unable to sleep. Her mind raced through impossible scenarios. She could refuse Dominic's help, insist on living her normal life. But he'd made it clear the security would stay regardless. And if she was really in danger, she thought about the money he'd offered. Enough to erase years of stress. Enough to breathe for the first time since her mother got sick. She thought about Danny's eyes, so scared and lost. She thought about Dominic's face when he'd talked about his son caring again. At midnight, she made her decision. She pulled out the business card Vincent had given her and dialed the number. He answered on the first ring. Miss Chen. I'll do it, she said. But I have conditions. I'm listening. I keep working at the diner. I don't care about some fancy apartment, my studio is fine. And I don't want your money. But if you're serious about the security, if I'm really in danger, then yes, I'll accept your protection. Silence on the other end. Then, you're refusing everything except the one thing I was going to insist on anyway. I don't need to be saved, Mara said firmly. I need to be safe. There's a difference. Understood. But the debt payment stands. Consider it payment for services rendered. You kept my son calm and safe. That's worth every penny. Mr. Castellano, Dominic, he interrupted. If we're going to be working together, call me Dominic. Dominic. She tested the name. I'm not comfortable with this. I know, but sometimes life doesn't ask for our comfort. It just asks us to survive. He paused. Welcome to my world, Mara Chen. Try not to let it change you. He hung up, leaving Mara sitting in the darkness, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst. Outside, the watchers maintained their posts, and in a penthouse office across town, Dominic stood at his windows, staring at the city lights, thinking about a woman who'd refused his money but accepted his protection, who turned down wealth but agreed to safety, who'd rather struggle than compromise her independence. She was extraordinary, and she had no idea what she'd just walked into. 3 days later, Mara was wiping down tables at the end of her shift when the diner door opened. She looked up and nearly dropped her rag. Dominic Castellano walked in, followed by Marcus and another security guard. Every conversation in the diner stopped, every head turned. He was dressed more casually today, dark jeans, a black sweater, but he still radiated power. People recognized him even if they couldn't place exactly why. They just knew he was important. Mr. Castellano, Mara said, her voice barely steady. This is unexpected. Danny wanted to come say hello, Dominic said. He's been asking about you. The door opened again, and Danny ran in, his face lighting up when he saw her. Mara crouched down and caught him in a hug. Hey there, buddy. Look at you, all dry and warm this time. Daddy said we could visit you at work if you didn't mind. Danny said. Do you mind? Because if you mind, we'll leave. Daddy says it's important to respect people's space. Mara laughed, her heart squeezing. I don't mind at all. You want some hot chocolate? We make it with extra marshmallows. Danny's eyes went wide. Really? Scout's honor. Mara stood and led them to a booth. The entire diner was still watching, but she ignored them. Go ahead and sit. I'll be right back. She returned with hot chocolate for Danny and coffee for Dominic. As she set down the cups, her hand brushed his, and electricity shot through her. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, acknowledgement of the impossibility of this situation, of the danger, and the strangeness, and the undeniable pull. Thank you, Dominic said quietly. Danny chattered about his day, his school, his turtle named Flash, who was very slow despite his name. Mara listened and laughed and for a moment forgot about the watchers outside, the danger, the impossibility of this whole situation. She just saw a little boy who needed kindness and a father who loved him desperately. We should go, Dominic said eventually. I don't want to keep you from your work. It was good seeing you, Mara said to Danny, ruffling his hair. Danny hugged her tight. Can we come back? Anytime, Mara promised before she could think better of it. As they left, Rita sidled up beside her. Girl, do you know who that was? Yeah, Mara said quietly, watching the Mercedes pull away. I know exactly who that is. And you're okay with this? With him just showing up here? I don't think okay is the right word, Mara admitted. But I think it's happening whether I'm okay with it or not. That night, Mara's phone rang. Dominic, I'm sorry if we made you uncomfortable today, he said without preamble. Danny was insistent. It was fine. He's a sweet kid. He is. Dominic paused. Mara, I need you to understand something. The men watching your building, the security, it's not paranoia. 2 days ago, someone from the Russo family was seen taking photographs of your apartment. Yesterday, a known associate of the Carbones asked questions about you at the diner. Mara's blood ran cold. Why? I'm nobody to them. You're somebody to me. That makes you valuable, either as leverage or as a target. His voice was grim. I'm telling you this because you need to take this seriously. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't talk to strangers who ask about me or Danny. And if anything feels wrong, you call Tommy immediately. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. But you should also know that I have the best security team in the city. No one gets to you while you're under my protection. No one. After he hung up, Mara sat in the darkness of her studio apartment, listening to the city sounds outside her window. Sirens in the distance, someone shouting, a car alarm. She'd helped a lost boy in the rain. And somehow, that simple act had pulled her into a world where kindness was currency and protection came with invisible strings. She thought about refusing it all. About running. Maybe going to Oregon to stay with her father. But then she thought about Danny's smile. About the way Dominic's eyes had softened when he talked about his son. About the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there was a reason she'd been at that bus stop that night. Outside, The watchers maintained their vigil, and Mara Chen, broke waitress from Bridgeport, accepted that her life would never be simple again. The flowers kept coming. Every 3 days, a new arrangement appeared at Rosie's diner. White roses one week, pale orchids the next, lilies the week after that. No cards, no messages. Everyone knew who they were from. "You've got yourself a situation," Rita said one morning, arranging the latest bouquet peonies this time, lush and full. "A very expensive, very dangerous situation." "I know," Mara said quietly. It had been 3 weeks since that night at the bus stop. 3 weeks of living with invisible watchers, of encrypted phones that rang at odd hours, of learning to recognize the difference between Dominic's security team and potential threats. 3 weeks of Danny visiting the diner twice a week, always with his father, always lighting up the room with his laugh. 3 weeks of trying to pretend her life was still normal, while everything around her shifted into something unrecognizable. She was wiping down the counter when her phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. "Situation developing. Stay inside the diner. Team en route." Mara's heart kicked into overdrive. "Rita, I need you to lock the front door." "What? Why?" "Just do it, please." Rita must have heard something in her voice because she moved immediately, flipping the lock and turning the sign to closed. The handful of customers looked up in confusion. "Sorry, folks," Rita said with forced cheerfulness. "Quick maintenance issue. Just give us a few minutes." Through the window, Mara saw them coming. 2 black SUVs pulled up, and Marcus emerged with 3 other guards. They weren't running, but they moved with purpose, forming a perimeter around the diner. Her phone rang. "Dominic, are you inside?" His voice was tight, controlled. "Yes. What's happening?" "Someone tried to grab you off the street. They were waiting at your usual bus stop. 3 men. My team intercepted them." Mara's knees went weak. She gripped the counter for support. "They were going to kidnap me?" "Yes. And they would have succeeded if Tommy hadn't spotted them setting up." Dominic's voice went colder. "The Russos are making a move. They think taking you will give them leverage over me." "This is insane. I'm not worth. You're worth everything to my son. That makes you worth everything to me." He paused. "Mara, we need to talk. Face to face. I'm sending Marcus to bring you to the estate." "The estate?" "My home. It's the safest place in the city. You'll stay here until we resolve this situation." "I can't just leave my apartment, my job." "Your apartment has been compromised. 2 men were seen watching your building this morning, and Rita will understand. I'll compensate the diner for your absence. You can't just—" "I can, and I am." His voice softened slightly. "Mara, please. I'm asking you to trust me, just for a little while." Marcus tapped on the diner window. Mara looked at Rita, who'd been listening to the one-sided conversation. "Go," Rita said. "Girl, if a man like that is offering you protection, you take it. This neighborhood isn't safe for you anymore." 20 minutes later, Mara was in the back of an SUV, sandwiched between 2 guards, heading north out of the city. They drove for 40 minutes, the urban landscape gradually giving way to suburbs, then to genuine countryside. The Castellano estate sat behind high walls and electronic gates, surrounded by woods that had probably been strategically left that way. The house itself was beautiful, a modern mansion of stone and glass that somehow managed to look both intimidating and welcoming. Danny ran out the front door before the SUV had fully stopped. "Mara, you're here." She climbed out and caught him as he launched himself at her. "Hey, buddy, surprise visit. Daddy said you're staying for a while. We can play games and I can show you my room, and the library has 1,000,000 books." "Danny, let her breathe," Dominic said, emerging from the house. He was dressed casually, jeans and a dark sweater, but he still carried that aura of controlled power. His eyes met Mara's over his son's head. "Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" "Always. But I'm grateful you chose correctly." Inside, the house was even more stunning. High ceilings, tasteful art, furniture that looked antique and expensive, but it also felt lived in. Danny's drawings hung on the refrigerator, sneakers kicked off by the door, a fleece blanket draped over a leather couch. A woman in her 50s with warm brown skin and kind eyes appeared from the kitchen. "You must be Mara. I'm Helen, the housekeeper, though mostly I keep this one fed and out of trouble." She ruffled Danny's hair affectionately. "Nice to meet you," Mara said. "I've prepared a guest room for you. 2nd floor, 3rd door on the right. You need anything at all, you just holler." Dominic gestured toward his office. "Can we talk?" "Danny, go help Helen with dinner." "But Mara just got here." "I'll be right out," Mara promised. "Save me a seat at dinner?" Danny nodded and ran off, Helen following with an indulgent smile. In the office, Dominic closed the door and leaned against his desk. "I need you to understand what's happening. The Russos are making a play for territory in the South Docks. It's my territory, and they know I won't give it up without a fight. But direct confrontation is costly, bad for business, so they're looking for leverage." "Me," Mara said, flatly. "You. They think if they have you, I'll negotiate. They're right. So what do? We? There is no we. You stay here under guard until I handle the situation." Mara's temper flared. "So I'm a prisoner? You're a guest. An honored, protected guest who happens to not be able to leave. That's the definition of a prisoner, Dominic." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration cracking his controlled facade. "What do you want me to do, Mara? Send you back to your apartment where they know you live? Back to the diner where they can grab you off the street? They tried today. They'll try again. I never asked for any of this. I know." His voice gentled. "I know you didn't, and I'm sorry. But you're here now, in my world, whether we like it or not. And in my world, the people I care about stay safe, by any means necessary." The words hung between them. "The people I care about. You barely know me," Mara said quietly. "I know you gave my son your jacket when you had nothing. I know you refuse my money because you value your independence. I know you send money to homeless veterans and work yourself to exhaustion and never complain." Dominic stepped closer. "I know you're the first genuinely good person I've met in 20 years. So yes, Mara, I care. Deal with it." She wanted to argue, to push back, but something in his eyes stopped her. Vulnerability, fear, not for himself, for her. "How long?" she asked instead. "A week, maybe 2. I'm working on a solution. But until then, you're safest here." A knock interrupted them. Marcus stuck his head in. "Boss, we've got a problem. The Russos sent a message." Dominic's entire demeanor shifted, hardening into something cold and dangerous. "What kind of message?" "They're claiming they have information about your wife's death. Saying it wasn't cancer. Saying you might want to negotiate for that information." The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Mara watched Dominic's hands clench and into fists, watched his jaw tighten until she thought it might crack. "Get everyone in the conference room," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "Now." Marcus disappeared. Dominic turned to Mara. "I need to handle this. Helen will show you to your room. Please." His voice cracked slightly. "Stay inside. Don't go near windows. Don't go outside. Not until I say it's safe." "Dominic, please, Mara. I can't focus on this if I'm worried about you." She nodded, and he left, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Helen appeared moments later, her expression troubled. "Come on, dear. Let's get you settled." The guest room was beautiful cream walls, a 4-poster bed, French doors leading to a balcony that Helen immediately secured. Mr. Castellano's orders. "No one goes out there until this mess is sorted." "What mess?" Mara asked. What did they mean about his wife? Helen's expression clouded. "Angela died 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer," they said. "Diagnosed too late, spread too fast. Mr. Castellano nearly died himself from grief, if it wasn't for Danny." She shook her head. But there were always whispers, questions about the timing. She was only 34, healthy one day, gone 6 months later. "You think someone killed her?" "I think in this world, honey, people die for all sorts of reasons. And not all of them are natural." Helen patted her arm. "But you're safe here. Mr. Castellano, he's got a reputation. Nobody touches what's his. And right now, whether you like it or not, you're his to protect." After Helen left, Mara sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process everything. 24 hours ago, her biggest problem was deciding whether to pay her electric bill or buy groceries. Now she was living in a mansion, hiding from mob enforcers, protected by a man who looked at her like she was something precious and breakable. A soft knock made her jump. Danny peeked around the door. "Mara, can I come in?" "Of course, buddy." He climbed, onto the bed beside her, his small face serious. "Daddy's upset. He gets like this sometimes, all cold and scary." "I noticed. But he's not really scary. He's just scared." Danny looked up at her with those enormous dark eyes. "He's scared because he lost Mommy, and now he thinks he might lose you too." "He's not going to lose me," Mara said, pulling Danny close. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise? She thought about the men waiting to grab her, about the danger, about how wrong this all was. But she looked at Danny's hopeful face and said, Promise. They had dinner in the formal dining room, Mara, Danny, and Helen. Dominic was sequestered in meetings that went late into the night. Mara could hear raised voices occasionally, the slam of a door, footsteps pacing. She put Danny to bed, reading him 3 stories until he finally drifted off, still clutching her hand. At midnight, she was sitting in the darkened kitchen, unable to sleep, when Dominic appeared. He looked exhausted, his shirt untucked, his hair disheveled. You should be resting, he said, opening the refrigerator and pulling out a bottle of water. So should you. He sat across from her at the kitchen island. In the dim light, he looked younger, more human, less like a crime lord and more like a tired father trying to hold everything together. How bad is it? Mara asked. Bad. The Russos have something. I don't know what yet, but they're confident enough to use it as leverage. He rubbed his eyes. Angela's death. I've always wondered. She was healthy, no family history. Then suddenly she's sick, and 6 months later she's gone. The doctors couldn't explain it. You think they poisoned her? I think it's possible. And if they did, if they killed my wife and have proof. His voice broke. I need that proof, Mara. I need to know. But they want the South Docks in exchange. Give it to them. Dominic's head snapped up. What? Give them what they want. Get the proof. Find out what happened to your wife. Danny deserves to know the truth. I can't just hand over territory. It shows weakness. In my world, weakness gets you killed. And in my world, Mara said firmly, some things are worth more than pride. Your wife's memory is worth more. Knowing the truth is worth more. Dominic stared at her. You don't understand how this works. No, I don't. But I understand that you've been living with questions for 3 years. I watched my mother die, Dominic. Cancer ate her alive, and there was nothing anyone could do. But at least I knew why. At least I understood. You deserve that closure. Silence fell between them. Then Dominic said quietly, You're extraordinary. Do you know that? I'm really not. You are. He reached across the island and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused. You see things clearly. You cut through all the politics and strategy and just to see what matters. Mara's heart hammered at his touch. Someone has to. Stay with us, Dominic said suddenly. Not just until this is resolved. Stay. Help me raise Danny. Help me remember what it's like to be human. Help me. He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. Help me feel something other than anger and fear. Dominic, I'm not asking you to be with me. I'm not asking for anything romantic. I'm just asking you to stay, as part of this family, because somehow in 3 weeks you've become essential. To Danny, to me. Mara wanted to say yes, wanted to lean into this, into him, into the possibility of something more than her lonely studio and endless work shifts. But fear held her back. I don't belong in your world, she whispered. Then help me find my way back to yours. Before Mara could respond, alarms blared throughout the house. Dominic was on his feet instantly, all exhaustion gone, replaced by lethal focus. Marcus burst through the door. Perimeter breach. 3 vehicles approaching fast. Russos. Get Danny, Dominic barked. Safe. Room, now. Helen, you go with him. He turned to Mara. You too. Move. What about you? I'm ending this. Tonight, guards appeared from everywhere. Mara hadn't even realized how many were in the house. Helen grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a section of wall that slid open, revealing a steel-reinforced room. Danny was already there, wide-eyed and clutching a stuffed lion. What's happening? Just a precaution, sweetie, Helen said, but her face was pale. Mara sat beside Danny, pulling him close. Through the doorway, she could see guards taking positions, weapons drawn. Dominic stood in the center of the chaos, phone to his ear, issuing orders with cold precision. His eyes met hers across the distance. Trust me, his expression said. The doors sealed shut with a hiss of hydraulics. And all Mara could do was hold Danny tight and pray that when those doors opened again, Dominic would still be alive. Outside, the Castellano estate prepared for war. Inside the safe room, Mara whispered to Danny, Tell me about your turtle. Tell me everything about Flash. And as Danny talked, his voice shaking but trying to be brave, Mara made a decision. If they survived this night, she would stay. Not because Dominic needed her, Not because of the danger or the protection or the money he could offer, but because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, this broken little family had become hers. And Mara Chen, waitress from Bridgeport, didn't abandon her family. The safe room had no windows, no way to see what was happening outside. Time stretched, endless and agonizing. Danny had finally fallen asleep against Mara's shoulder, exhausted from fear. Helen sat across from them, her rosary beads moving through her fingers in constant prayer. Mara counted her own heartbeats. 100, 200, 500. How long had they been in here? An hour? 2? Then, finally, the hydraulic locks hissed, the door slid open. Dominic stood in the doorway, his white shirt spattered with blood, his knuckles split and bruised, but he was alive, whole. "It's over," he said. Mara carefully extracted herself from Danny's sleeping form and ran to him. She didn't think, didn't analyze. She just threw her arms around him, feeling his solid warmth, his racing heartbeat. "You're okay," she breathed. Dominic's arms came around her, tight and fierce. "I'm okay. You're okay. That's all that matters." "What happened?" "The Russos came. We talked. Or rather, a grim smile. I made them an offer they couldn't refuse." "Did they have information about Angela?" Dominic pulled back slightly, his hand still on her shoulders. "Yes, and you were right. She was poisoned. Thallium introduced slowly over months through her medication. The prescription was legitimate, but someone had been replacing her pills with ones laced with poison." Mara's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God. The Russos didn't do it. They just bought the information from someone who did. A doctor named Morrison who worked for the Carbones." Dominic's expression went cold. "He's been dealt with." Mara knew what dealt with meant. Part of her should have been horrified. Instead, she felt a savage satisfaction. "What about the Russos? The territory?" "I gave them the South Docks, in exchange for the proof, for stepping back, for leaving you alone." He cupped her face in both hands. "You were right, Mara. Some things are worth more than pride. Knowing Angela was murdered, having proof, being able to tell Danny someday when he's old enough. That's worth everything. Danny shouldn't have to know his mother was murdered. No. But he'll know she was loved. That I got justice for her. That the man who killed her paid for it." Dominic's thumbs traced her cheekbones. "And he'll know that the woman who helped me see clearly stayed. If she wants to." "I want to," Mara whispered. "I'm terrified, and this is insane, but I want to stay." Dominic's smile transformed his face. "Good, because I wasn't going to let you leave anyway." Behind them, someone cleared their throat. Marcus stood in the doorway, fighting a smile. "Boss, we should probably get your knuckles looked at, and Miss Chen should know your apartment has been emptied. Your belongings are being moved to the East Wing suite as we speak." "You didn't," Mara said. "I did." Dominic had the grace to look slightly sheepish. "I may have been confident you'd say yes. That's incredibly presumptuous." "Yes, it is. And arrogant. Also yes." Mara wanted to be angry, but she was laughing instead, all the fear and tension of the night releasing in waves of slightly hysterical giggles. "You're impossible." "So I've been told." Dominic pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Come on, let's get Danny to bed. Tomorrow we'll figure out the details. Tonight, we're just grateful everyone's safe." As they walked toward the safe room where Danny still slept, Marcus fell into step beside Mara. "For what it's worth, Miss Chen, you made the right call. Boss has been different since you showed up. More human. The men respect that. Even though I'm just a waitress?" Marcus's smile was genuine. "You're the woman who gave the boss's kid her only jacket and her last meal. You're the woman who made him remember his wife deserves justice more than pride deserves protection. That's not just anything. That's family." 3 months later, Mara stood in the Castellano kitchen, teaching Danny how to make pancakes from scratch. Flour dusted his hair in her apron. The radio played old rock songs. Helen hummed as she chopped vegetables for dinner. It was ordinary, perfect in its normalcy. "Can we put chocolate chips in them?" Danny asked. "It's your dad's birthday. We can put whatever we want in them." Even gummy bears? Even gummy bears. Though that sounds disgusting." Danny giggled and dumped an entire bag of chocolate chips into the batter. Dominic appeared in the doorway, fresh from his morning run. His hair was damp with sweat, his t-shirt clinging to his chest. Over the past 3 months, Mara had learned his routines. Morning runs, coffee with 2 sugars, reading to Danny before bed. She'd also learned the weight of his gaze, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. with something that looked like wonder. "What's all this?" he asked, though his smile said he knew exactly what it was. "Birthday pancakes," Danny announced. "With chocolate chips, and we're not putting gummy bears in because Mara said it's gross, but I still think it could be good." "It would definitely be gross," Dominic agreed, ruffling his son's hair. He moved to Mara's side, his presence warm and solid. "Thank you. For this. For everything." "Happy birthday," she said softly. His hand found hers, their fingers linking naturally. "Best one I've had in years." Later, after pancakes had been devoured and Danny was at school, Dominic found Mara in the library. She'd claimed a corner as her own, filling it with used books from secondhand stores that Dominic pretended he didn't notice her buying. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Of course." He sat beside her on the window seat, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "These past 3 months have been. They've changed everything. You've changed everything." "Dominic, let me finish." He took her hands. "When Angela died, I thought I'd never feel anything again except anger. I buried myself in work, in revenge, in building walls so high that nothing could hurt me. Then you appeared in my life, giving my lost son your jacket, and those walls started cracking." Mara's heart hammered. "I'm not good at this," Dominic continued. "At feelings. At being vulnerable. My world doesn't allow for softness. But with you, I want to try. I want to be the man who deserves someone like you. The man who puts kindness before power. The man my son needs and," he swallowed hard, "the man you might possibly want. I already want. You," Mara whispered. "I've wanted you since that first midnight conversation in your kitchen, when you let me see past the crime lord to the grieving husband and scared father." Dominic pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "I can't promise you a normal life. I can't promise safety or simplicity. My world is dark, Mara. It always will be. Then help me bring light into it. We'll do it together." He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. Mara kissed him back, pouring 3 months of longing and fear and hope into it. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dominic said, "Move into my room. Officially. Be with me. Help me raise Danny. Help me remember there's more to life than revenge and territory disputes." "Yes," Mara said simply. "To all of it. Yes." That evening, when Danny came home from school, they told him together. "So Mara's going to stay forever?" Danny asked, his eyes wide. "If she wants to," Dominic said, looking at her. "I want to," Mara confirmed. Danny launched himself at her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I knew it. I told Flash you'd stay. I told him you were too nice to leave us." Over Danny's head, Mara met Dominic's eyes. 3 months ago, she'd been a waitress counting tips in the rain, wondering if she'd ever be more than barely surviving. Now she was here, in this beautiful house, with a man who looked at her like she hung the moon, and a child who'd claimed her heart from that first rainy evening. She'd helped a lost boy find his way home, and in doing so, she'd found her own way home too. 6 months after that rainy night at the bus stop, Rosie's diner held a party. Mara had insisted on it. She still worked there twice a week, refusing to give up everything from her old life. "You need to remember where you came from," she'd told Dominic. "Both of us do." The diner was packed. Rita, Helen, Tommy, Marcus, Vincent, and a dozen others crowded around tables, pushed together. Even Danny was there, charming everyone with stories about his turtle. Dominic stood at Mara's side, his hand resting on her lower back. He was learning to exist in her world, not just his. Learning that strength could be gentle, that power could serve rather than dominate. "Speech," someone called. Mara laughed, shaking her head. But Dominic pulled her close and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, 6 months ago my son got lost, and a woman with nothing gave him everything. She gave him her warmth, her food, her kindness. She asked for nothing in return. She didn't know who we were. She didn't care. She just helped because it was right." His eyes found hers, dark and intense. "Chen taught me that kindness isn't weakness. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is give when you have nothing. That real power comes from choosing compassion over cruelty." He raised his glass. "To Mara, who saved my son, who saved me, who reminds me every day that there's still good in this world, and it's worth protecting." "To Mara," the room echoed. Mara's eyes burned with tears. She looked around at the faces: Rita, who'd become like a mother, Helen, who'd welcomed her without question, Marcus, who'd gone from guardian to friend, Danny, whose smile could light up the darkest room, and Dominic, whose love had crept up on her slowly, built on midnight conversations and shared fears, and the gradual understanding that two broken people could make something whole. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," Dominic said, kissing her temple. "Thank you. For everything." That night, after Danny was asleep and the house was quiet, Mara and Dominic stood on the balcony of their bedroom, looking at the city lights in the distance. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "Your old life?" "Sometimes," Mara admitted. "The simplicity, the independence, knowing exactly who I was and where I fit. And now? Now I know I fit here. With you, with Danny. It's not simple, and I'm .sign, still figuring out who I am in this world. But I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply happy." Dominic wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. "I love you, Mara Chen. I don't say it enough, but I do. You took my darkness and filled it with light. I love you too," she said, turning in his arms. "Even when you're being an overprotective, arrogant crime lord. Especially then." They kissed under the stars, and Mara thought about that rainy night that had changed everything. About a scared little boy and a broken jacket and $43 in tips that had somehow led to this. To love, to family, to home. She'd given her last tip to a homeless child, metaphorically at least. She'd given everything she had, and in return, she'd received everything she never knew she needed. The Chicago Tribune lay open on the breakfast table, the headline screaming in bold letters, "Castellano Empire Expands. New community centers to serve Southside neighborhoods." Mara smiled as she flipped the pancake, golden brown and perfect. The kitchen smelled like butter and vanilla, mixed with the coffee brewing in the expensive machine Dominic had installed, but that she still couldn't quite figure out how to use properly. "Mara, I can't find my blue shirt," Danny's voice echoed from upstairs. "The one with the robot on it. Check your closet, buddy. Left side, second shelf." At 9 years old, Danny had grown 3 inches and lost most of his shyness. He was still sweet, still sensitive, but he'd developed a confidence that came from knowing he was loved unconditionally. Therapy had helped too. Mara had insisted on it after everything that happened 2 years ago. Found it. Mara plated the pancakes just as Dominic entered, wearing his running gear, his hair damp with sweat. Even after 2 years, her heart still did that stupid flutter thing when she saw him. Some things never changed. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pressing a kiss to her neck. "Morning, Mrs. Castellano." She'd kept her last name professionally. Chen appeared on all the paperwork for the foundation she now ran. But privately, in moments like this, she loved hearing it, loved being his wife. "Morning, Mr. Castellano. How was your run?" "Cold. February in Chicago is brutal." He reached around her to steal a piece of pancake. "But I had motivation to get back quickly." "Yeah? What's that?" "You." He turned her in his arms, his dark eyes soft in the morning light. "Always you." They'd gotten married 8 months ago. A small ceremony in the estate's garden with only close family and friends. Rita had cried through the entire thing. Helen had organized it with military precision. Marcus had walked Mara down the aisle, and she'd cried when he'd whispered, "Your mother would be so proud." Danny had been the ring bearer, taking his job so seriously that he'd practiced walking slowly for 3 weeks beforehand. "Gross. You guys are kissing again," Danny announced, sliding into the kitchen in his socks. "That's like the 5th time this morning." "6th, Dominic corrected, not letting go of Mara. "And you better get used to it, kiddo. I plan to kiss your mother at least 20 more times today." "So gross," Danny said, but he was grinning. He'd told Mara once, late at night when she was tucking him in, that he liked seeing his dad happy, that his mom would have liked her too. Mara had cried herself to sleep that night, overwhelmed by the weight of filling shoes she'd never be able to fully fill. Dominic had held her, reminding her she didn't need to replace Angela, she just needed to be herself. Breakfast was chaotic in the best way. Danny talked about his upcoming science fair project, something involving volcanoes and too much baking soda. Dominic reviewed his schedule with Vincent, who'd become not just security but a trusted friend. Helen bustled in and out, reminding Danny about his dentist appointment, and Dominic about the charity board meeting. And Mara sat in the middle of it all, coffee in hand, watching her family with something that felt like contentment. After breakfast, Dominic headed to his office for morning meetings. Danny caught the school bus. He'd insisted on it, wanting to be normal like his friends. Security still followed at a distance, but he pretended not to notice. Mara drove herself to the office, the Chen Foundation headquarters in downtown Chicago. Dominic had wanted to name it after both of them, but she'd refused. This was hers, built on her terms. The foundation focused on supporting working families in poverty, paying utility bills, providing food assistance, helping with medical costs. Everything Mara had needed when she was struggling, everything she wished had existed when her mother was dying. They'd helped over 3,000 families in 18 months. Her assistant, Jamie, a sharp 24-year-old with purple hair and a degree in social work, met her at the door. "Morning, boss. You've got the interview with Channel 7 at 10, the budget meeting at noon, and Mrs. Patterson is here early for her 3 o'clock. Mrs. Patterson's here now?" She said she couldn't wait. "She's crying in the conference room." The good kind of crying, I think. Mara found Mrs. Patterson, a 58-year-old grandmother who worked 3 jobs, sobbing into a tissue. "Mrs. Patterson, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." The woman stood, pulling Mara into a fierce hug. "Everything's right. The foundation paid off my medical debt, all $40,000, and I just got approved for a loan to buy a small house." "A house, Miss Chen? My grandkids will have a yard." Mara hugged her back, her own eyes burning. "You deserve it. You've worked so hard. I could never have done this without your help, without someone believing I was worth investing in." Mrs. Patterson pulled back, gripping Mara's hands. "You're an angel. You know that?" After Mrs. Patterson left, Mara sat alone in her office, looking at the framed photo on her desk. Her mother, taken a month before she died, smiling despite the pain. Beside it, a photo from her wedding day, Dominic kissing her, while Danny laughed in the background. Her phone rang. "Dominic." "Hey," she answered. "What's up?" "Just wanted to hear your voice, and to remind you we have dinner tonight with the Russos." Mara groaned. "Do we have to?" "Yes. Peace requires maintenance. Besides, Victor's wife is nice. You liked her at the last dinner." "I liked her. I don't like spending 3 hours making small talk with people who tried to kidnap me 2 years ago." "Fair point." She could hear the smile in his voice. "But you're better at this than I am. You actually make them laugh. I just threaten them with thinly veiled violence. Your diplomatic skills are truly inspiring. I learned from the best. See you at 6. Love you." "Love you too." The interview with Channel 7 went smoothly. The reporter, a woman in her 30s, asked thoughtful questions about the foundation's work, about Mara's own background, about her marriage to one of Chicago's most powerful men. "People are fascinated by your story," the reporter said. "Waitress to philanthropist to wife of Dominic Castellano. It's like a fairy tale." "It's not a fairy tale," Mara corrected gently. "Fairy tales are about magic solving problems. This was about work, about choosing to see opportunities for kindness, about building something meaningful from pain. My mother died because we couldn't afford proper care. Now I make sure other families don't face that same choice." "And your husband supports this?" "Completely. The foundation is funded partially by Castellano Holdings, but I run it independently. He respects that I need to build something that's mine." "Do you ever worry about the rumors? About his business dealings?" Mara had been expecting this question. She met the reporter's eyes, steadily. "My husband is a businessman who operates in complex spaces. He's also a devoted father, a supportive partner, and a man who's worked hard to give back to this city. I know who he is. I know what he's built. And I'm proud to stand beside him." It was the truth, even if it wasn't the whole truth. She knew about the gray areas of Dominic's business, knew about the deals made in rooms she never entered, but she also knew he'd been changing, slowly but surely. More legitimate businesses, less reliance on old methods. The foundation was part of that transformation. He was trying to be better. For Danny. For her. For himself. That evening, Mara dressed carefully for dinner, a navy dress that Dominic loved. Simple jewelry, her hair twisted into an elegant updo. She looked like someone who belonged in this world now. Sometimes she still couldn't believe it. The Russo dinner was at a high-end steakhouse where everyone knew everyone, and the wine list had bottles that cost more than Mara used to make in a month. Victor Russo and his wife Elena were already seated when they arrived. "Dominic, Mara, so good to see you," Victor said, standing to shake hands. He was in his 50s, silver-haired, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Elena hugged Mara warmly. "I heard about your interview today. I can't wait to watch it. The foundation's work is incredible." Dinner conversation flowed easily. Business was discussed in careful code territory agreements, shipping schedules, mutual interests. But mostly they talked about normal things. Danny's school performance, Elena's daughter's wedding planning, the harsh winter, Plans for summer. This was the strange duality of Mara's life now. Dinner with former enemies who'd tried to use her as leverage. Coffee with Rita at the diner where she still picked up weekend shifts. Board meetings in glass towers. Volunteering at the soup kitchen every Thursday. She existed in multiple worlds, and somehow, impossibly, she'd learned to navigate all of them. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said quietly while their husbands discussed something in Italian. "How do you balance it all? Being who you were with who you are now?" Mara considered the question. "I don't balance it, I integrate it. I'm still the girl who gave away her jacket. I'm just also the woman who runs a foundation and attends charity galas. Both are true, both are me." Elena smiled. "I like that. Integration, not balance." On the drive home, Dominic took Mara's hand. "You were perfect tonight." Victor actually smiled. "I don't think I've seen that in 5 years. Elena's nice. I think we might actually be friends. The wife of my former enemy is your friend. Only you, Mara. Only you could pull that off." Back at the estate, they paid the babysitter, a college student from Danny's school's family, and checked on him. He was sprawled in bed, surrounded by library books about volcanoes, fast asleep. Mara straightened his covers and kissed his forehead. He mumbled something about lava and rolled over. "He's getting so big," she whispered. "I know." Dominic stood in the doorway, watching them. "Sometimes I look at him and see Angela, the way he tilts his head, his smile, and it used to hurt so much. But now," he trailed off. "Now?" Mara prompted, joining him in the hallway. "Now it makes me happy, because he has her best parts, and your kindness, and maybe some of my stubbornness. He's going to be okay, better than okay." In their bedroom, Mara changed into comfortable pajamas while Dominic checked his phone, responding to messages. It was domestic and ordinary and perfect. "Tommy sent the security report," Dominic said. "Everything's quiet. No threats, no unusual activity. It's been 8 months since the last incident." The last incident had been a minor thing, someone from the Carbone family making noise about old grievances. Dominic had handled it with a single meeting and what he called aggressive negotiation. No one had bothered them since. "Good," Mara said, climbing into bed. The sheets were expensive, high thread count cotton that she'd picked out herself. She'd learned to be comfortable with luxury, though she still got a thrill every time she remembered that this was her life now. Dominic joined her, pulling her close. They fit together perfectly, her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Saying yes that first night, agreeing to this life?" "Never." "Do you regret asking?" "Not for a single second. You saved me, Mara. You saved both of us." "We saved each other," she corrected. "You gave me purpose, security, family. I gave you, what? Pancakes and reality checks?" He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "You gave me everything that matters. You reminded me how to be human, how to put love before power, how to build something instead of just protecting what I already had." They lay in comfortable silence for a while. Then Dominic said, "I have something to tell you." Mara propped herself up on her elbow. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. At least, I hope it's not." He took her hand. "I've been working with the federal prosecutors, giving them information about the Carbone family's operations, the money laundering, the corruption, everything." Mara's breath caught. "Dominic, that's dangerous. I know, but necessary. The Carbones killed Angela. They've hurt countless others. And I'm tired of being part of a world that allows that." His dark eyes met hers. "I want to go legitimate. Fully. It'll take time, years maybe. But I want Danny to inherit businesses, not battles. I want to be someone he can be proud of without reservations." Tears pricked Mara's eyes. "You're already someone he's proud of. Because of you. Because you showed me there was another way." Dominic cupped her face. "I'll never be a saint, Mara. My past is what it is. But my future, our future, can be different." She kissed him, pouring 2 years of love and hope and gratitude into it. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, she whispered, "We'll do it together, whatever comes." "Together," he agreed. The next morning, Mara woke to find Dominic already gone early meeting. The note on his pillow said. She stretched, enjoying the quiet moment, then heard small footsteps in the hallway. Danny peeked around the door. "Mara, are you awake? Come here, buddy." He climbed into bed beside her, still warm and sleep-rumpled. At 9, he was almost too big for this. but she treasured these moments when he still sought comfort and closeness. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Always. Do you think my mom would like you?" Mara's throat tightened. They didn't talk about Angela often. Dominic had photos throughout the house, and they visited her grave on her birthday and death anniversary. But Danny rarely brought her up directly. "I hope so," Mara said carefully. "I think she'd be grateful that someone loves you and your dad as much as I do. But sweetie, I'm not trying to replace her. No one could." "I know, but sometimes I forget what she was like. I remember little things, her perfume, how she sang off-key, but I can't remember her voice clearly anymore." His eyes filled with tears. "Is that bad?" "Oh, honey, no. That's not bad. That's just how memory works." Mara pulled him close. "Your mom loved you so much. She'll always be part of who you are, and I'm honored to help your dad raise you, but Angela will always be your mom. Always." "But you're kind of my mom too," Danny said quietly. "Is it okay to have two moms? One who's gone and one who's here?" Mara's tears finally spilled over. "Yes, sweetheart. That's absolutely okay. Hearts are big enough for all kinds of love." They stayed like that for a while, holding each other. Then Danny pulled back and wiped his eyes. "Okay, I'm good now. Can we make volcano pancakes for breakfast?" "Volcano pancakes?" "Yeah, with whipped cream lava." Laughing through her tears, Mara said, "Absolutely. Let's go make a mess in the kitchen before your dad gets home and has a heart attack." They did make a mess, flour everywhere, whipped cream on the ceiling somehow, but the pancakes were delicious, and Danny's laughter filled the kitchen, and Mara thought about how far they'd all come. 2 years ago, she'd been alone, broke, and hopeless. Now she had a family, a purpose, and love that defied every expectation. That afternoon, Rita called. "Turn on Channel 7. Your interview is on." Mara pulled it up on her laptop, watching herself talk about the foundation, about second chances, about building something meaningful from pain. The Mara on screen looked confident, polished, but when the reporter asked about her husband, Mara saw something else in her recorded eyes. Love, pride, the kind that came from truly knowing someone, flaws and all, and choosing them anyway. The interview ended with Mara saying, "I gave away my last tip to a homeless child once. That moment taught me something important. Kindness isn't transactional. You don't help people because you'll get something back. You help because it's right, because we're all one bad day away from needing someone to share their jacket." Her phone exploded with messages. Jamie sent a string of praise emojis. Helen texted that she'd recorded it. Marcus sent a simple, "Proud of you," and Dominic's message made her cry. "Watching you become who you're meant to be is the greatest privilege of my life. Come home soon. We miss you." That evening, the three of them, Dominic, Danny, and Mara, sat in the den, working on the volcano project. Well, Danny worked. Dominic read through contracts, and Mara alternated between helping with the science and stealing glances at her family. "Okay, so the baking soda goes here," Danny said, positioning the homemade volcano. "And the vinegar goes—" "Wait!" Mara lunged for the container. "Outside! We're doing this outside!" They moved to the back patio, bundled in jackets, and watched Danny's volcano erupt in spectacular fashion, red-dyed vinegar and baking soda lava flowing down the papier-mâché sides. "That was awesome," Danny shouted. "That was a disaster waiting to happen," Dominic muttered, but he was smiling. Later, after Danny was in bed and the kitchen was cleaned, Mara and Dominic stood at their bedroom window, looking out at the city lights in the distance. "Do you ever miss it?" Dominic asked. "Your old life? The simplicity?" "Sometimes," Mara admitted. "I miss not knowing that people might want to hurt me. I miss feeling invisible because invisible is safe. But then I think about what I have now, you, Danny, the foundation, the ability to actually help people, and I wouldn't trade it. Not for anything. Even knowing everything you know about me, about what I've done?" She turned to face him. "Especially knowing that, because I know the whole truth. I know where you came from and where you're trying to go. I know you're not perfect, but you're trying to be better. That's all anyone can do." Dominic pulled her close, his arms tight around her. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. And I deserve you. We deserve this happiness, this family, this life we're building." She pulled back to look at him. "Besides, someone has to keep you humble." He laughed. "You do that just by existing. Every time I start to feel too powerful, too untouchable, I remember that I'm married to a woman who still uses coupons and gets excited about sales at the grocery store. 40% off is 40% off, Dominic. I don't care how rich we are. I know. And I love that about you. They went to bed wrapped in each other, talking about nothing and everything until they drifted off to sleep. And Mara dreamed of rainy bus stops, of scared little boys, of moments that changed everything. She'd given her last tip to help someone in need. And the universe had given her everything in return. Not because kindness was transactional, but because sometimes, when you put good into the world gives it back in ways you never expected. In the morning there would be more challenges, more threats to navigate, more work to do. But tonight, Mara Chen Castellano slept peacefully, surrounded by love, knowing she was exactly where she was meant to be, home. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.